This is truly a disgraced country. We are not like this before. When a country that offers help to protect other people in crisis now have its army chased by hoodlums who really rarely have boots on their feet, is that not a disgrace?
You think it's peculiar?
Oh no, this is truly a disgraced country right now. Not because
government particularly is intellectually challenged. This government is intellectually bankrupt. This president, like I said, with his team, are committed only to coming to power again in 2027. That is why their mindset is take the parties out of the way, destroy PDP if we can, take away Labour Party if we can, be the only sole person standing, make a visual re-entry in 2027 and easy, take. So this president and his team, because it is not performing well, but 2027 will be on his record. What they accomplished the past 4 years, not what he's supposed to accomplish the next 4. If he feels that he hasn't done much, the best is not to go for recontest, is to turn these parties into leprous fingers. So all the parties will sing hallelujah for him, but that's not going to happen. There will be resistance, not only from the top, from the bottom.
This country is a disgrace. Under Tinubu, this country is a disgrace under Tinubu. That's what exactly the word of Donald Trump. That's what he said. You know, it is because Donald Trump said it. Now, that's what he said. Now he's telling you that, yeah, that is the truth. The country is facing a lot of challenges under Tinubu. So, I have never seen a president or a government like this before. Now, if you say, okay, during the time of other president we had, anyways, I just want you to take your time, listen to this video, and we'll come back and talk about it. This is Oriental Udenta. Listen to everything he said, and the other man, you listen to what he said, that the country is facing a lot of problems. Is it disgrace? Talking about this government, what has the government done over the last 2 years? They came into power. What have they done better than the previous administration? Or where is the hope that is going to be better? Or there are no signs, there are no green light at all. No, there are no green light anywhere. The land is not green, it's red, it's danger. It's danger. So take your time, listen to this video. We'll come back and talk about it. He's still talking about Christian genocide, this, that. But the truth is bitter to say, because this is not ordinary, it's not normal again. Yes, this is not normal again. Anyways, take your time, watch this video. We'll come back and talk about it.
Because we've gotten to a point where people can no longer trust our own security forces to protect them. Most communities talk about their suspicion of complicity. So at that point, even if your men arrive, the communities don't trust them. So they're not going to be in a position to do the job. Before we build trust, you need some help, all right, to stabilize the situation. So why have they not sought for help? Why have they not embraced help? And that's why people accuse them of complicity, all right? Because if you are not in control, obviously you are not in control. The data are horrendous. And this is not the time to incite one section of the country against the other, or to turn it into a religious affair between Christians and Muslims. They are all Nigerians that are dying on all the sides of the divide. And I think this is where we need to concentrate our attention. President Trump has been moved by his own local political base in America to intervene. Now, what we need to do as a country is to negotiate a framework in which this intervention does not undermine Nigerian sovereignty. And you can't take that question of sovereignty too far now, because your sovereignty has been undermined anyway by all the hoodlums that are running around in Katsina, running around in most of Northwest states. The rural area, bandits collect taxes. So they have already started exercising sovereignty over your territory. So you can't accuse any other person that is trying to help you of trying to violate your
But do you think Trump or the American administration under him are coming to the table respectful partners? He called Nigeria a disgraced country.
Well, it's just that it's coming from Trump. Nigeria started helping other African countries. Okay, at independence, between already taking power in northern region, when our first republic leaders took the driver's seat of our polity, our economy grew exponentially. By 1966, when the military launched their coup, the GDP of Nigeria was $6.3 billion US. Malaysia's own was 3.2. That means that Nigeria's GDP was 5.8 billion. Nigeria's GDP was bigger. APC took the reign of affairs. Nigeria's GDP has been shifted from $574 billion to all the Great Depression in America in 1929. Worldwide, the contraction was less than 6%. So if you had 50...
I mean, the entire global economy is not back to where it was
absolutely
pre-pandemic.
Yeah. It was less than 6%. It didn't even get to... So when you talk about shaving the GDP by about 50%, what you have is more than a depression. In fact, it has no example. It has no comparison in economic history. It is tragic. It is disgraceful. What we have. So your problem is that it's Trump that is saying it. Why I'm saying it, I've said it. It's disgraceful. It's tragic. This is not where we should be. This is not to done better as a country.
Right.
November this year, President Donald Trump designated Nigeria as a country of particular concern for religious persecution, and then went ahead to issue unprecedented threats and even directing the Department of State Defense to get ready, if need be, for military action against Nigeria, claiming Christian genocide. For you, designating Nigeria a country of particular concern.
We use the term redesignation, which means we were once designated as a country of particular concern. In 2020, nation is a consequence of practical actions and a product of intense, rigorous study of the variables that Nigeria has made the threshold for the country to be designated or respecting religious freedom or persecuting people on the basis of their faith. The US, as a moral country, must rise to the President took office in 2021. He lifted that designation. Why are you killing Christians in your country? And when he said it was turned, and taking it back, he didn't prepare for that. Maybe a conversation about economy, investment, etc., loan, grants, what have you. When Nigerian pushed for inclusion in the, one of the public members of the Security Council, his mind was charted around those critical strategic areas. And he said, why are you killing Christians in your country? It took him time to recover. And they said, we're not killing Christians. We have issues that are complex. They're header farmer, climate change, porous borders, all manners of things, and so on. And again, Muslims too have been killing Christians. He was able to answer as much as he could. And maybe Trump saw the sincerity in his voice or whatever there, or maybe he wasn't impressed. That's what must have led to the designation in the first instance. Now, Trump in November, like you pointed out, redesignated Nigeria as a CPC country on the basis, again, of some, evaluations of variables on the ground. Some perceived not just the killings, but the systematic killings, the uprooting of people, displacement, depopulation, rise in IDP camps that are not even maintained, and then global outcry. In Australia, there's some noise about that in Parliament. In Canada, some noise about it in Parliament. The US itself, a very important senator, a very powerful senator, Ted Cruz, led the charge with other ones like Riley Moore at the level of the House of Representatives. So when you have this confluence of global and national forces working in tandem, Trump is a guy who is very inconvenient as a president and incorrect as a politician. He doesn't take convention that serious. He doesn't take orthodoxy that serious. He simply will act, not on impulse, as people will presume, on his own deeply ingrained mindset, using his weapon as a social media tool as a weapon to say, you are killing Christians, desist, I will designate you this, and I'll come guns blazing, and so on. In essence, Trump is a master of messaging. That messaging is he rhetoricizes his viewpoints and narratives in such blatantly threatening form as to shock you into a realization of the oddity of your own condition. He did that with Gaza. I will turn you into a Riviera. I will tear it down, take away the rubble, build golf courses with maybe prancing women on bikini in the heart of Muslim Middle East. They were shocked. We don't want this extreme measure. It will not solve our problem. It will rather is a better problem. Let us not talk to Hamas and impress upon them the need for ceasefire. The moment there's a ceasefire, you don't do the anymore. So he's actually pushing the country, the government that is indolent and confused and distracted to say, wake up, has made a coffee. If you do not do so, certain hard decisions will be taken. But if you begin to do so and convince the way they're doing so, Trump can always pull back. He does that. He's very clear. If he's not clear, he would have won the election 2016, contending that he won 2022, which is still very problematic for us to know who really won. And then he won again 2024. So he's a smart player. He's not going to come gun a blazing, starting, with this stack up to gunshots everywhere, missiles fly here and there. He's not that crazy in the head. And he doesn't operate that way, in spite of all the power, enormous power they're putting under their grasp. But what he's doing is he's signaling. If you don't take certain precipitate steps, mid-term, short-term, long-term, to stem this so-called horrifying scale of killings, especially in north-central Nigeria, that many ascribe to be Christian genocide, a lot more problem will come to the country. In conclusion of this segment of your question, I ask Nigerians to take a step back and take a deep breath. The betting of this country was inorganic and contingent. We didn't create and say 1914. The British did, bringing over 300 separate, distinct political, economic, social, cultural, even faith groups together in not a harmonious relationship, in a convenient relationship. Today we're still struggling to create a nation out of this winter of communities. In essence, our nationhood is imperiled by the factor of our inconvenient betting. The fault lines are deep, ready to explode. People should not romanticize the Trumpian threat as if it's going to be helpful to solving our national problem. It will not, because it will deepen the divide and let even those who should not profit out of it profit out of it. In 2023, somebody ran an election on the Muslim ticket. I don't want that victim mentality. That is a Christian horde, global Christian conspiracy against Islam. And somebody here who is already a failed presidency, as far as I'm concerned, and a failed party called APC is going to say, we told you so. If we yield ground on this matter of Sharia and so on in the north, these Christians are going to wipe everybody out. As much as we understand the killings in the country, in the middle part of the country and so on, we can see that Muslims now are under immense pressure. The survival is even under threat. I'm putting this out so that people out there, pastors, preachers, Christian evangelists, passionate people from these communities will understand that it takes more than a raw emotion to solve this kind of complex problem. While there may be issues of Christian genocide and so on, we must take a deep breath and find a way to reach common ground, mobilize the national spirit, convince the government to wake up. It is by this being distracted by politics. I said it in the last time we talked about. This president is fighting on 2027. He doesn't want to have a proper election. He wants to have leprous parties like Abacha had. PDP, ADC, Labour Party, SDP as leprous parties with no candidates, adopting him alone. In doing that, he's taking his eyes off the gas pedal of fight against terrorism, against insecurity, against banditry. In doing this obsession, being obsessed with politics of power and its own succession in 2027, he's not talking in terms of how do we reduce poverty, how do we reduce exclusion, how do we re-engage our communities, how do we have the IDPs. So when you are not committed to this, you don't even have ambassadors for 2 years, you don't have a presidential commission on foreign relations or foreign policy, because the focus is narrow on winning election, destroying PDP, destroying the Labour Party and so on, you have lost the plot and dropped the ball. That's the focus of Nigerians today. The president should abandon this high road to political perfidy in terms of having himself as the only standing candidate in 2027 and focus on the threats, including the killings in the Middle Belt. There could be Christian genocide, that could be more complex than it, including the threat coming from Trump, and having an ambassador in place, having them voice all over the world, working with critical stakeholders in sorting out this mess. And finally, in mobilizing Nigerians across faith. We have what is called NIREC, N-I-R-E-C, Nigerian or National Religious Council. Is he still alive and well? We have this concourse of Khan and the Supreme Court of Islamic Faith. By now, you have seen them marching lockstep with the president in the field and his team. By now, you have former ambassadors who are very great, former foreign affairs ministers, people like Emeka Anyoko, people like Bolija Kiyimi, people like Kingiwe. Should be around the president now, marshalling this thing. They see them abroad and say, we know them, and we trust and respect them. We are not seeing such. It is just self-defense. The country is not killing Christians. The country is not in this bad shape. We're going to work hard to end terrorism. Verbalizing your intent does not solve your problem. You need to get off your butt, roll your sleeves, and as a president with a team, begin now to mobilize the energy of the country to confront this pressing reality.
What do you make of the president's response so far on this particular issue?
At the level of rhetoric, he's been very well restrained, knowing the character called Donald Trump. He can't match him. Verbal staccato for verbal staccato. He cannot match him violent language for violent language. So the president has been measured. He's taking wise counsel. He's talked about Nigeria willing to partner with, even with the US, seek the support, seek the understanding. As the president, of course, he need to talk about no to Christian genocide. We have a complex security situation in the north. We have the radical Islamic hordes from the east and the northeast and the northwest thundering down in our communities. We have the issue of banditry, header, farmer clash. Nuancing it in such a way that it does not exclude any of the major communities of faith in the country in the conversation. So at the level of rhetoric, I, who is always harshly critical of the president, will not say he has done too badly. But rhetoric and narrative do not solve the problem. You need to get out the narrative of rhetoricizing this crisis to the domain of practical action. Short term, what do you do? Long term, middle term, what do you do? Long term, what do you do? Short term for me will be put ambassadors in place. I've been screaming about this for almost a year and a half. If you don't have ambassadors, nobody will take you serious. Our foreign policy in the 1960s was constructed around that high moral imperative of African decolonization. How do we, by founding AU, or AU as it then was in 1963, begin the march to decolonize the rest of Africa, accelerating it all through the early 70s, under the watch, remember, of Murtala Mohammed and Obasanjo, when it became a Afro-centered foreign policy, radical in nature, intent in destroying apartheid, and then became a frontline state, nationalizing British companies and so on. So it was coherent, clear. In the 80s was the concept of medium powers that Bolivia Kingdom had the bargain to put together, that saw us with ECOMOG in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, etc. But from the book, Obasanjo, of course, did well with Bouteflika, with the former South African president, like the Thabo Mbeki, in constructing AU out of the way, out of this shambolic order then called OAU, that would become a conference of heads of state with the cigars and the power. AU as a mobile tool, with what? Peer review mechanism, with NEPAD, and then African Architecture, Peace and Security. The safe and coherence. NEPAD, remember, needs documents, etc. Under Buhari, this coherence dissolved into tributaries that are inchoate in nature. Under Bola Ahmed Tinubu, foreign policy has crumbled completely. ECOWAS for the first time in our history, even with coup d'etats across Africa, civil wars, etc., imploded. The ancestors who constructed it kept it together. Under his watch, 3 states walked out of it, maybe for good. Under his watch, ambassadors have not been in place for almost 2 years. What
do you think is even responsible for not appointing ambassadors in the last 2 to 3 years?
I don't know. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense, because you have national priorities in the sense of the key sectors of national life, the space of existence, the economy. What are my tools to sustain the economy? The tools are not working, I understand, but there are tools he has. Remove subsidy, flood the naira, and tax regime. Essentially, tax reform and new tax regime. They're not working, all right, but there's something they can say. Under the social safety net program, of course, country from what Buhari stopped. Money grant here, tailor money, farmer money, youth money, etc., student loan. But when it comes to foreign policy, there are the four so-called Ds: development, democracy, diaspora, etc. But it's just at the level of talk. The first level is to have ambassadors in place. And there are many countries that cannot even allow ambassadors to be in place for even a day. If you go to UK as a preeminent global power, and there are issues to confront the Nigerian state with the UK government, and the Prime Minister is looking for the ambassador and there's none in place, he will not go and sit down with the council, minister counselor, or charge their fee, not to talk of the US, or Russia, or China, or Germany. That's why they be more friendly in terms of the way they look at him. But in terms of serious, they say, no, these guys are not serious yet. Where would they pass a message to a country, to a president? It is with ambassadors. Here in America, they have tools on ground. The embassy is staffed by all manners of people, including security and intelligence officials. Two, the critical civil society elements who are part of the American domain of power and influence. Three, there are informers there, people there who have gathered information everywhere. Four, they have things they are funding in various areas, even malaria and so on there, cholera, eradication. You don't know the people driving it in the villages. They give them information data. They have drones, they have satellite, and each time they make sure they have an ambassador in place. You don't have any of that. And this president is confused and bemused because he's distracted by power. If the PDP implodes and crumbles, if the convention doesn't hold, if they don't have the candidate, oh my God, I've succeeded in my mission in becoming the second-term president. Same with Labour Party, same with SDP or ADC. Rather than focus on the great issues of the day. So when Trump came calling, it was like a soccer punch. It's a wake-up call. Smell the coffee. If you don't, this country is going to go down. I'm among those who believe that Trump don't go for a stream for the sake of a stream. Trump signals to you as a signal to his base. This is what I intend to do. But if you do the right thing, I don't need to get there. Give you an example with cancer. Example, another one that is emerging with Ukraine and Russia. It's more difficult and complex because Russia is not a small meat to eat. 6,000 plus nuclear power, nuclear warheads, the biggest in the world. So you have to be careful how you manage them. If not, you have sorted that even mess out. The way it's trying to sort out the DRC and the Rwandan crisis, the way they sort out the Sudan and South Sudan situation. Nigerian crisis of the moment is a ravaging scourge of extremist Islamic franchises from the northeast and the northwest, bearing down on the rest of the country. The crisis that has exploded in the Middle Belt region as possibly a crisis of displacement, depopulation, and devastation. A crisis that people now perceive to be genocidal in nature. It's the duty of the Nigerian government to push back on these narratives by doing practical things which have listed at the first level. Second level is to remobilize the energy of the armed forces. How do you do that? You can even have a conference, security conference, declare clear and present emergency in the security sector. Get even former security heads who have deep knowledge of the system, embed them with their current leadership of the armed forces and security agencies. Then begin to work with the subnational leadership, the governors, the government chairman. In 2001 or 2, President Obasanjo faced some similar crisis in the Benue Valley or Benue Trial states, Benue, Taraba, Nasarawa, Plateau, etc. You know what he did? He set up the overarching team made up of the presidency, the Secretary of the Government Office, and the Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution, where I was the director of internal conflict, and moved everybody, including himself, for 4 days to Kuru, in Jos, at NIPS. There he worked with us with his lips rolled, poring over maps, studying data, going to the field, getting scholars to speak. Are you seeing that with this president and his team? Absolutely. We used to go to Villa in those days every month for conflict analysis, with the president sitting at the table with the Institute for Peace and other critical stakeholders there, taking questions, pushing back on him, pushing back on us. We having the freedom to speak our mind. In 2003, we set up what was then called Presidential Implementation Council, headed by the Vice President, with ministers in place in tow. Do you see that sense of urgency in this government? Do you see that sense of strategic mobilization and profound depth when it comes to tackling national emergencies? This is a national emergency. But as a patriot, it is not my desire to say, come, gone, a-blazing, invade the country, this spoil, desecrate our territorial integrity. No Nigerian patriot will wish that, because the consequences will be very immense when the battle has come and gone and the guns are no longer blazing. We still live with Christians and Muslims and many other groups in between.
Look at some persons argue that in 2014, that the APC, including some of those in power today, went to America and said that Goodluck was not protecting the Christian community and that Christians were being killed and they wanted help from America. And today, the same America is coming back to say you are not protecting the Christians, and they are fighting back. How do you reconcile this?
Well, say that history has a way of coming to bite back on you, and then the day of reckoning is always around. I think today the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper is on our INEC chairman Amopitan and the legal brief he did in 2020 about Christian genocide in Nigeria, an 80-page piece he contributed to a big document, maybe running to hundreds and hundreds of pages, and proclaimed clearly from the point of view of jurisprudence and careful legal reading there may be issues of human rights abuses, crimes against humanity, and genocidal war declared on Christian populations in the North Central. That's the new chairman of INEC. It becomes a raging crisis now, maybe of confidence and trust. So it's part of that thing you're talking about. In 2014, they did that. 2020, the INEC chairman then as a lecturer, as a professor at the University of Jos, put out his viewpoint. He's like a brief, he's like an opinion. My take is that even with the existence of Christian genocide, people should not talk and act overboard. as if the country has suddenly dissolved itself into inchoate, regions of Christian faith and non-Christian faith, Muslim faith and non-Muslim faith. By the time we discover that this crisis can be managed, damage will have been deep and profound in terms of distrust, aided by disinformation, misinformation, and fake news. So we have to be careful that even what we're doing does not weaponize interfaith fault lines in the country. Many people believe that this government is not doing particularly well, but some people believe too that this advanced moment, this moment of reckoning, should not provide opportunity to the government to cash in and say we are defending one faith or the other. It's critical that pastors, evangelists, preachers, contributors, critical stakeholders, public intellectuals understand this, that there's always a side, another side to a coin. There's always a narrative and counter-narrative. If you talk about the Sharia system, remember what Obasanjo said in 2004, 5 or 2, or whatever time he said it in his time as a president. The Sharia has been part of our penal code from time immemorial. The real Sharia will endure, but the fake political Sharia will die off. Unfortunately, it didn't die off. It became cemented or baked into the jurisprudence of the law in the north. That is why you have people who purchase crates and crates of beer and sell it even in Christian communities in the north have been attacked. Where you find issues of this blasphemy that doesn't concern Muslim, maybe Muslim-Christian relationship, you're punished for that. So if we can get a conversation where the Sharia becomes limited, one, to civil issues, and secondly, to the Muslim faith and adherents of that faith, and then leave the rest of the people out of it. There will be less noise internationally about it. Is when somebody who's not a Muslim is subject to Islamic injunction, Islamic law, and meant to be punished for that, or even die because you're expressing some inconvenient opinion about the faith, which you don't belong to. These are things which you don't handle anyhow. You handle with care because they're complex. Matters of faith are not matters of bread and butter. To say, give me this cloth, I like it. If you don't give it to me, I'll take it by force. Matters of faith are deep and profound because it is in the heart, and it is anchored on the transcendental divinity beyond this earth to somewhere else. Some believe if you die, you're not dying here, you're going to go to heaven or go to Nirvana somewhere. So the rational life and practical, logical life that people express in their day-to-day conduct dissolves into nothingness when it comes to faith. So managing faith is not that easy. So less noise, less intemperate argument, less staccato, sentiment all over the place, Trump come gonna blazing, destroy everybody, destroying Christians. That will not work because it's oversimplified.
All right, let's look at it from this context. Supposing Trump comes with sanctions or other measures, what are the consequences for Nigeria? And could he also be setting a bad precedent for us?
It depends on specifically the kind of tools he wants to utilize.
Whether he uses sanctions?
As I said, the most practical tools will be sanctions, and sanctions can come in various forms. They come in the form of aids that could be stopped, grants already in motion that be stopped, loans being prepared and packaged that could be stopped. Maybe if you pay some money to purchase some sanctions on individuals and authorities and state functionaries. We are hearing some noise about the Sharia law in the north, 12 governors under watch and so on there. It could be asset freeze, it could be visa ban and all manners of things there. But for me, the issue of guns blazing is an extremist measure, which I rule out now, unless it gets to a stage in which this matter can be controlled or ameliorated. However, it doesn't work well, not just for the government abroad. So North Korea is the same. So sanctions are important, but they are necessary but not sufficient tools, to solve the problem. They call attention to a crisis and they remind you that you have the tools to engage you in a profoundly negative way that you may not like. But if you not take the steps which I've tried to articulate, and others I'm sure advise the security apparatuses that engage the citizens across the different domains and different fault lines we have in the country. So we can begin to have Muslim, Christian understanding with civil society and then political parties. Look at 1999, Obasanjo set up his party office. We have a clearing house of political parties. So this contestation will manage easily. He have even the first chairman of APP, as then the party was called, Mahmoud Waziri, as a special advisor with a cabinet level rank on inter-party affairs. Now you don't have that existing anymore. Rather, it is using presidents in all the parties, the PDP, the ADC, etc., to dismantle these parties. When you dismantle the parties and deny the elite opportunity to contest for power, what did they do? They riot in the way that suits them. They aid the enemies of the state. They begin to draw, stoke certain things they will not see them stoke. So rather than mobilizing all the parties and getting them off their back and allowing them to be what they be, you are now suppressing and repressing them, weaponizing INEC, weaponizing the judiciary, having captured the National Assembly and so on. If people do not have a space to breathe, they begin to seek for self-help. Self mustn't be catastrophic self-help in terms of toppling the democratic system. It could be, in a way, engineering constructed and inorganic conflict. Conflicts come from two types. Organic conflict you and I will deal with every day, over resources, over land, contestation over politics and power and economic opportunities. Then there's an organic one. Common patterns of what that guy is waiting for now. When a happy waiting to happen, you haven't even demonstrated yesterday. There's some fun for you to do so here and there and so on. You precipitate national crisis for yourself because you're excluding everybody from the centerpiece of political conversation and power. That is one thing I've been talking about, and people don't seem to listen. If you take a party, for example, like the PDP, why is the government obsessed about the party? Because it's been in power before. It has apparatuses everywhere. It has infrastructure in all the 774 in every home, in every village. So if the party like PDP will have to have a P2B as a candidate, not a small Labour party, or Jonathan as a candidate, it's a nightmare scenario for the president. So the idea is this party will not recover. Let us batter it down. ADC with a lot of powerful names too has 16 legal challenges, all engineered from outside. So with Labour Party that has been handed power by the former INEC chairman to the Nigerian man, now taking away Tabure, all to create further confusion. For me, these are not coincidences, but grand design by the government of the day to march into 2027 for a mutual re-entry process. In doing so, you took your eyes off the ball. The ball of the fight against terrorism, the fight against banditry, the ball of having ambassadors in place, the ball of engaging the international community, because you're focused more narrowly in self-representative politics.
Let's extrapolate now and link up this with politics, talking about the Trump threat. What does it mean to the APC's Muslim ticket?
The APC Muslim ticket in 2023, when it bettered itself, the clear message from the president, then the candidate Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was it's a strategic gamble designed to mop up as much vote from across the north and even beyond as much as possible. That means we have no intention of weaponizing religion or elevating one faith over the other. Or we look at the geography of power. That is the argument, not mine. You have a minority Muslim in the south. That's Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is a Muslim of the north-southwest extraction. We don't really know the percentage of Christian Muslims there. Experts can tell us that. But the entire southeast and the entire south side are predominantly Christian. That means it's a gross minority in the south. For them to have a minority in the north with a minority in the south would be a gross disadvantage. So they have to have a minority in the south and a majoritarian candidate of a majoritarian faith in the north, where the Muslims are more in the north than Christians. That's why they claim they went for that ticket. Not because there is any attempt for Islamic supremacy or for Islamic militancy to take hold in the country and grow in leaps and bounds. Now, that's the argument. But that's not the way people perceive it. That's not the narrative out there. The narrative out there is that this is just a weapon to clobber the rest of the country down and to shove it down the throat of non-Muslims that we're in charge. And the president catastrophically adopted that mindset. Now with the pressure coming from outside, and no less a person than Donald Trump, the American president, the dilemma is very clear for the APC to grapple with. Do we sustain this Muslim ticket with the heated noise about Christian genocide in the north? Or do we then placate that community by bringing a Christian running mate? Only the APC can answer that question, not me.
Are you worried or bothered that sectarian crisis, whatever name of any kind in the country, has lingered this long without seeing solution in sight?
I'm bothered because in a sense, I'm some sort of a conflict expert. Not because I trained originally in the area of peace practice or conflict studies, but because I led a presidential team for 8 years in managing internal conflict in Nigeria. Therefore, I worked with critical stakeholders, both state and non-state actors, including international development partners and embassy diplomatic missions and multilateral organizations. The World Bank, the EU, the USAID, everybody was very much in France, the British DFID and so on, a concert of civil society groupings. In this institute that we created in 2002 or 3, what we call the Strategic Conflict Assessment Document, from where, as I told you, separated the Presidential Implementation Committee headed by Atiku there at the highest level of government. So I thought that given the kind of work we did, the conflict analysis, the conflict research, the early warning scheme, both at the local levels and at the national level as a hub. Because the idea is to have the continental mechanism feed into the regional community like ECOWAS and into the nation state, early warning and early response mechanism. We had all that in mind 2001, 2002, that's 24 years ago. So if that pace had been sustained across this immense historical time, almost quarter of a century, possibly the answer to your question would be no, we will not be suffering this kind of mess we are suffering today. But because sometimes these governments are distracted, they pursue different things that suit their self-interest, not the collective interest of the people. Sometimes they don't have any holistic approach to conflict management. Sometimes the method they deploy will not be suitable to our own environment. I'll give you an example. Traditional methods of managing conflict have not been really elevated the way it should be. Secondly, it took a long battle to even mainstream the multi-door court system. Remember the multi-door court system, where you have the door of litigation, the door of mediation, the door of conciliation, the door of negotiation, the door of arbitration. It took a long time. Lawyers were feeling under threat. If we do all this multi-door, our job will be parade. Now the lawyers are the ones driving it. That means if you try litigation, it doesn't work. Try arbitration, try negotiation, try conciliation. This is for me the breadth of this conversation. There's another thing we call transitional justice mechanism. Is it working in the north? When they have a deconfliction, from deconfliction to de-radicalization to reintegration, is it working? You have other issues called restorative justice. How do we sit down with the victim and offender in the healing process, where you can now reconcile your differences, heal the community, restore peace? You see how the breadth and contours of these tools are, especially non-kinetic tools, because no matter how powerful the kinetic arsenal you may have, you can only suppress an environment for a short period of time. If you rear up his head, a conflict situation there. But if you have the non-kinetic tools, how do you mobilize citizens? How do you gather intel? How do you weaponize intelligence? How do you do any warning evaluation? How do you do any response? How do you look at transitional justice mechanisms? How do you look at traditional methods of conflict management? These are the more, and how do you do multi-track, and multi-tiered conflict management? The one from the state, the one from non-state actors, international community, all in the mix. This government particularly is intellectually challenged. This government is intellectually bankrupt. This president, like I said, with his team, are committed only to coming to power again in 2027. That is why their mindset is take the parties out of the way, destroy PDP if we can, take away Labour Party if we can, be the only sole person standing, make a usual re-entry in 2027 and easy, take. But again, in doing so, whether you fail or not is not even important. What are the consequences for this kind of precipitate action to the head of the country? The Donald Trump challenge and the guns are blazing seem to be a reminder that the more we distract ourselves from the urgent matters of the day, the more the rest of the world will recommit our attention to those matters.
Okay, let's go to party politics now, and the court interference in party politics. Take, for instance, the PDP. There are conflicting court judgments from Court of Concurrent Jurisdiction, the Abuja, Ibadan. The convention should not hold, the convention should hold. What's your take in all of this?
Well, this is, I wouldn't say, basically the fragmentation or the crumbling or the decay of the political order. Because the decay of politics is only the decay of the judiciary and the decay of our representative democracy. Maybe one of the symptoms there. Sometimes this process reaches a high water mark, given the nature and character of a regime. The Milokun philosophy seems to suit this tendency of state capture. You capture the National Assembly, capture INEC, capture judiciary, capture security agencies. I've said it. This is now a hybrid regime that President Tinubu is running, that the regime that is almost what we call competitive authoritarianism. Whether it is liberal or illiberal, whether it is democratic or not democratic, difficult for you to understand anymore. But the overarching aim is to dismantle what we call the guardrails of democracy. Those that protect democratic governance. One, civic spaces are shrinking. Look at they bring back the GS environment where you used to protest against Jonathan. That is the Unity Fountain. He's on the gate. Get there by the DSS. You can't even go there to protest. Look at the Freedom, the kind of protest where the court said we restrict you to certain areas there. They took over the entire city from Kubu axis to Airport Road axis there to Kano axis and so on. People were shut off. So this government is weaponizing the cyber laws and so on, misapplying it. Okay, labor leaders have even been accused of terror financing. Parties are included before our eyes, all because of the standard pressure put on them. That's what you find. So judiciary is not sparing this. But the happy news is this: factions are normal occurrences and normal developments in a political party. I was a National Secretary for Life for Democracy in 1998 to 2000, end of 2000, early 2021 or 2001. We had factions, multiple factions, but we kept producing candidates. Why is it so? INEC is a regulator. If you go to INEC now, the head office and say, who is the national chairman of PDP? They don't look at this one. They say it is Ambassador Damagu. He's the chairman of the party. He's succeeded IU, accepted by everybody, until the legitimate processes that brought him in have been exhausted. He's the chairman. So where he goes is where the party goes. Other important members like me and the national secretary is key, but not as key as the chairman of the party. So what is settled is that Damagu is the leader of the party. Two, INEC intervened in the party crisis, brought the chairman, brought the secretary, brought everybody, attended all their meetings, got them in letters to the convention. So the convention is like a pregnancy now already delivered. What the courts are doing is way in here and there. So what you do is ensure your convention goes successfully. Get robust legal representation. Either you do what they stop the execution of the conclusions or decisions of the first court. Get another court to give you that lease of life. Get another court if you can. Get another one too. Do your convention. At the end of the day, the correct legal position will triumph. Apuga, until a few months ago, was a faction for about 14, 15 years. Have you forgotten? When Soludo emerged the first time as the governor of the Anambra, he was a factional candidate of Apuga. When Obiano emerged, he was a factional, same with the senators who were Ume and the rest of them. So factions are there as tendencies within a party. So it's like having a club. You have either bottles of Fanta or spirit, and you gather there and say you remove the chairman of the party, known to INEC. You gather in another location, say you remove the BOT, headed by Senator Mabara, known to INEC. And then because of the resources to advertise it to the media, and I'm being a gate about this absurdity before you hear, it doesn't change anything. The chairman of the party is Damagu, chairman of BOT is Mabara, chairman of the governor for Bala Mohammed about his state, Senator Bala Mohammed, and the leadership of the National Assembly caucus is Senator Adaburo. It's in law. So anything else you do is like you have a freedom of choice. Most as a president, an agent planted from outside to destroy the party. The same thing you find in ADC, you find in Labour Party and SDP. It's a trend, not a coincidence. So the PDP are smart. They should not this factional noise making. Focus on the real issues of the day. Do a very fine convention. Get a newsletter of leaders. And somewhere down the line, execute and discharge this matter in court with robust intervention from the media, from civil society, from protest groups, warning about the dangers of our democracy and our survival as a nation. If you destroy multi-party governance system, if you deny the party's ability to have people there who are going to represent them as candidates, you actually imperiling our democracy. Abacha did it in 1998 with the leprous finger. Remember, the leprous five leprous parties. You didn't register a PPP, you didn't register PDM, ANC, and all that. You shut them away because he didn't perform well. Because if the contest against him, will lose. So this president and his team, because he thinks he's not performing well, but 2027 will be on his record. What they accomplished the past 4 years, not what he hopes to accomplish in the next 4. If he feels that he hasn't done much, the best is not to go for real contest, is to turn these parties into leprous fingers. So all the parties will sing hallelujah for him. But that's not going to happen. There will be resistance, but not only from the top, from the bottom, where the people of this country will gather together, adopt a party or two of their choice, have a candidate that represents their viewpoint and the perspective, that carries their narrative torch in their heart, in his heart, delivers a very powerful struggle in 2027.
Have you listened to that? That is it. So, in the last 2 years of Tinubu's government, what area has it done well? Question. If you ask me, what area has this man done well? What has he done better than the previous administration? Or what is doing that is going to make this administration after 4 years in office better than Buhari's administration? I'm not seeing any sign. But if you ask me, I'll say he did very well in terms of destroying opposition parties so that he can have opportunity to be re-elected. But that one is zero. Tinubu is a wanted president. Take it or leave it. If you talk of that, yeah, he's very good. because of money. And Nigerian people, some of these politicians, they don't have integrity. They don't have integrity. They are like a remote control. If you have money, you can control them. Do like especially president, a stubborn president who is bullying, full of himself. So intimidating these governors. Do you understand? So some of them do not have choice. But some of them with integrity, they will resist the threat from Tinubu asking them to decamp to APC so that he have time to destroy opposition parties. It's for money. It's nothing else. Don't worry, I'll give you money. Come to APC, I'll give you a position. After all, it's a position you are in that party looking for. Somebody is telling you, don't worry, after 4 years in office, if I've been re-elected, all these ministers that are working now, they will be resigned. I'll lay them off, then I will bring in new ministers, then I will appoint you, I will appoint you. After all, these people want to serve because they don't have integrity. They just want to be in power. That's what they are doing. That's what they are doing. Just imagine. So if we say government is bad, government is bad, government is bad. Look at some Africa countries now. Yeah, look at some. In terms of other things they have, let's say they have failed. Some of them, they are not doing well. We are doing better than in some area. That was before. But if the country is not meeting up with the GDP, competing with other Africa countries, but their country is safe, right? But now in our country, our GDP has declined, reduced. We are struggling to get to where we were before. Then this issue of Donald Trump came. That one cost a lot of things. We lose a lot of money. The GDP goes down. Right? Now, in terms of education, we are not doing well. In terms of roads, schools, hospitals, no. I don't think we have improved beyond where we were before when Tinubu took over. I don't think so. That we are doing well in terms of hospitals. I don't think so. Then in terms of security, that one is worse. It's the topic of today now. Since 2 weeks now, this is what people have been talking about. Do you understand? So this man has not done well, and all indications are still pointing at failure, danger. No one is pointing at green, as in green light. No one is showing green light. No, it's still pointing at failure. Do you understand? Now the year is gone. Just today now, November what? 11th of November. No. Before you know, we're in December. Next year, we'll count in just 1 year to do. There's no magic to it. Next year, campaign season. So you are not expecting much from president, from governor of your state again. Anyone who failed at this time, they failed in 4 years, because the next year, once the campaign season starts, election season starts, there's no a law they can do again. And all this money you see, some of them are borrowing now. Still, they are storing the money in one place for 2027 election. You see what happened in Anambra State. That one was just a test of INEC chairman, and you see they failed. You see that they failed. And what happened there on that video? We saw a lot of video. They were selling their vote. They said it has even increased now, that they are not selling their vote 30,000 per person. To sell your vote 30,000 per person. Do you understand? So that was what we saw in Anambra State. That video that went viral, they were selling their vote here and there. And even the other one that they were voting, the EC aid paper, they were not there. Somebody was filling the form somewhere else. Meanwhile, the voters were there fighting, voting and all that. And everybody there that day, that means they were just wasting their time. Their vote is not going to be determined, it's not going to be counted, and it's not going to determine the winner. Do you understand? So when you look at all of these, this government has failed woefully. Has failed. Anyways, what happened in Anambra State? That was just a test to the new INEC chairman, Professor George Amopitan. Now that one shows that he has failed, and it's not going to happen. A free and fair election, except the electoral reforms before then is being signed into law, as they are doing this thing, meetings, summing reforms concerning electoral reforms. So maybe, hopefully, that's the only way. Other than that, there will be no free and fair elections. You saw that. What do you call that? That was electronic. That was, we said they should be transferring. We should have electoral reforms that will enable them to transmit the result from the polling unit to the IRF directly, so that as you are voting, everybody have access to the result, and immediately it's being uploaded. But instead of that, they're not doing electronically transmission of money or transfer of money. That was what we saw in Anambra State. That was electronically transferred of money instead of vote. So we are voting Tinubu 2027. No, affliction will not read for the second time. What do you think? Please share this video and subscribe for more.